The best piece of advice that I can give somebody as it relates to what I've seen is discipline is the word that comes to mind. It's simple in nature, but it's so meaningful. And he always says, always keep your feet moving. I knew that there was not a recruiting practice in the world that focused specifically on that skill set.
All right. Happy Friday, everybody. And Nate, I know we had some technical difficulties this morning, mainly on my side, and I'll start off with that when we start talking in a second. But first of all, I want to welcome everyone to the Clear channel. Obviously, we do our recordings on Friday mornings. It's awfully early on the West Coast for my buddy Nate, so I appreciate you jumping on this morning and getting things rocking. I'm going to tell you a bit about his background. We're going to jump into some great questions we have prepared. And first of all, just want to say thank you so much for getting on this morning, Nate. I know you and I had a long conversation on our flight to the Dominican. You were flying there to hang out with your mom. We were flying there for our corporate event that we do every year for R&R. But first of all, good morning. Thank you for your patience today.
Hey, listen, thank you for having me. Happy to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Love it. So let me tell you guys about Nate, and I'm going to read just your bio if you're okay with it, because I don't want to miss anything.
Yeah.
So Nate Williams is a dynamic, forward-thinking professional driven by his unwavering commitment to customer success in the ever-evolving landscape of technology. His journey through life exemplifies an unyielding pursuit of knowledge and his resolute mission to leave a lasting positive imprint on the world. Nate's educational journey is a testament to his diverse interests and unwavering dedication. He proudly holds a bachelor's degree in communications from Pacific Lutheran University, where he specialized in public relations, while cultivating a profound fascination for groundbreaking technology. Simultaneously, he showcased his versatile skills on the basketball court as a shooting guard on the men's basketball team, consistently averaging 14 points per game. And I got a question around basketball for you in a minute. And Nate's professional career was ignited at 3Com, later propelled him to leadership roles at industry giants such as Salesforce. I know we use Salesforce as an organization. Yammer, Microsoft, and Xamarin. Currently, Nate stands as a founding and managing partner at Benjamin Vance Search, a premier executive search firm laser focused on delivering transformative leadership placements within the tech startup ecosystem. Since pivoting to executive recruiting, he has placed over 100 leaders across the country. And obviously, Nate's story is a testament to his knowledge, passion, and dedication for driving to success in the ever-evolving tech world. But thank you so much, Nate. Appreciate you jumping on. So just so everyone's on the same page. When I was setting up the system this morning, super smooth normally.
Yeah.
My AirPods weren't working.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, I got to get my AirPods connected. So I went into my little, I'm not the tech guy. I went into the system, went to Bluetooth, and I'm like, oh, I just got to turn it off and on to get it to connect. So I turned off my entire Bluetooth system. Oh, man. And then I'm trying to figure out how to get it turned on without the mouse. I didn't realize how important this mouse was.
It's okay.
Oh, man.
Listen, it's not the first time that I have experienced technical difficulties, so it's okay. It's all right.
Yeah, definitely.
It's all right.
So first of all, describe yourself in one word, Nate.
It's a great question. I would say determined. That's probably the best word, right? So when I think about that, not only the question, but I think from a personal and a professional level, the word that comes to mind is always determined, right? You're always faced with challenges, whether it's personal or professional. You have to kind of quickly, or maybe not so quickly, figure out what the solution is and lean into it, right? Be pretty determined to get through it. And it's a word that has served me well, right? You don't make it to certain areas of your life, your business, your career without some level of determination. So it's one of my favorite words.
Love it. And tell me about growing up. Obviously, you've grown up in a family that's a relative athletic family, right? Competitive family. So
Right.
tell us about upbringing, life, family, parents, obviously sister, things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, so listen, I want to give you and your audience a little context. So I will dive into that question, but let me provide some context. So my father was he made it to the highest levels of professional basketball. He was in the NBA for about 11 years. My older brother, well, let me back up. So my dad's about 6'5". He played about 6'5", 225. Really, really strong guy. Doesn't sound that big in comparison to some of the heights and NBA today, but he played late 60s and into the 70s, so a long time ago. But he was a fairly big, strong guy. My brother's about 6'6", also played Division One basketball, also played professionally. My sister, who we talked about on the plane, out of high school, she received a scholarship offer from every university in the country. Uh, Not only did she receive a scholarship, but she received scholarships in both softball, volleyball, and basketball. She chose UCLA. She accepted the volleyball scholarship, where she won 2 national championships. She convinced her coach, because she loved basketball, to allow her to play basketball. So she played basketball, she played volleyball and basketball at UCLA. Later went on to join the 1996 Olympic team for volleyball. She was the last person cut. So uh, because she was pretty angry, right? Most athletes and those are highly competitive individuals. When something doesn't go their way, there's usually a reaction. And that reaction for her was a bit of anger, right? So she then decided, since I'm in such great shape, why don't I try out for the national basketball team? So she made the national team. Subsequently, won a gold medal in Sydney in 2000 on the basketball team. So just providing context of
Uh,
the household potentially that we grew up in. Um, Being a highly competitive environment is a bit of an understatement. That's exactly what the house. Whether it was grades, reading books, playing Monopoly, playing ping pong, and obviously the sport that you had chose throughout high school, it was fairly competitive. And as kids, you don't really realize that it's a highly competitive environment. You just know that you want to win, right? You want to. Again, my parents were really big on playing by the rules, right? There's no cheaters in this house. Don't shortcut yourself. But if you want to win, let's figure out a way to improve your skill set, to make sure that you are, when you step on the field, the court, the arena, the conference room, that you are prepared, and nothing's going to come your way that you're not aware of and or you're not prepared for. So that's the environment that we grew up in our house.
Love it. Love it. And it's interesting, right? Because you two played basketball, right? And you're a pretty darn good basketball player. So I have to ask, so between you and your sister, when you go one on one,
Listen, that's a great question. I think it's always kind of like the scales of justice. I remember our conversation on the plane. You have sons that play soccer, right? There's going to come a time
yeah.
when you are getting older and they are getting stronger. One is going to pass the other. So I would say there was a time that I was better than my sister, but time you can win a gold medal and be considered the best in the world, hands down, she has it. She takes it.
That's awesome. That's
I
awesome.
might
And kudos.
I might could take her now.
Yeah.
Oh, and this is the piece that we probably didn't talk about, but my sister is currently the general manager for the defending WNBA champions Las Vegas Aces. So she continues to excel in basketball. She just does it from a boardroom in a computer right now. But she's definitely not active. But yeah, that's how I would describe that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And kudos to her, right? Because that Vegas team, basically turned it all around within a few years. Or I'm sorry, it was a brand new team, right? We
It,
discussed.
it was a team that was located in San Antonio. They had moved. They started in Utah. They moved to San Antonio. They then moved to Las Vegas as a new franchise. But they had to pick up some new players. And she's only 2 years into her role as GM, and in 2 years she's won two chips. So it's not too bad.
That's awesome. That's so cool. And tell me about this. So obviously you have some incredible examples in the athletic world, and I'm sure in the business world as well. Who would you say is someone that has had a big impact on you, a big influence, or a role model for you?
It's a great question. I would say I wouldn't say that there's one person, right? I would kind of break it down into three areas. First and foremost, we grew up in a pretty religious house, right? We went to church every Sunday before any of the activities and cleaning the house. We went to church. Most of our morals, beliefs, our guidance system, if you will, is based on religion. So I would first say God. Um, the second person I would say is my mother, right? Most most boys, most men love their mothers, right? Their mother's salt of the earth. You can't do any wrong. Even when you guys have a bit of a disagreement, right? You're always the one to extend the olive branch because that's mom, right? That's what you do. uh, my mom exemplifies what we had talked about earlier, determination, right? I had to see her, raise kids, go to work, provide different things for the household. And to me, I knew she was tired, right? I knew she was sleepy. I knew it probably wasn't something she needed to do, but she kind of, again, she leaned into it for the sake of the household, for the sake of the kids. So that's another person that I admire. And I would say lastly, professionally, I have a mentor. We talked about it briefly on the flight, but I have a mentor that owns about 40 plus McDonald's restaurants in the South. And he was somebody that I was able to have really good conversations with at an early age, specifically around life, around business, around money, around networking. Whereas, there were things growing up that I never thought to ask my dad about. So here's this other person that was able to provide me some insight. And again, I can't stress this enough. If there are individuals that are listening to this that have not identified a mentor, I would highly suggest that you do that. Just because having a perspective from somebody who has been, however you classify it, successful, achieve some things that you essentially do. A mentor can really help you get there and kind of expedite the process.
I think you mentioned we were chatting about him, and you'd flown into the Carolinas to go golfing with him. Do you mind sharing that story a little bit?
Yeah.
Kind of open your eyes to.
Yeah. So, I am I kind of want to date myself a second. So I am a new leader in Microsoft, right? I'm kind of wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. I am responsible now for, let's say, 50 or 60 people in Microsoft. Um, I, have befriended this person, asked me to fly out from the West Coast to fly to his home in the South to play some golf. So I'm thinking, well, that's great. Absolutely. Like, you're my mentor. I love golf. Let's go do it. So I get on a plane. I fly out um, to the South. I arrive at his house ready to play golf, right? Obviously, shirt, it was, let's say, 75 degrees, shorts, my golf clubs. I'm ready to go. And he says, well, what are you doing? And I said, what do you mean? I'm here to play golf. He was like, yeah, we play golf, but we're not playing golf here. I was like, oh, okay. Well, which golf course are we going to? Or is it down the street? He was like, no, we're flying to the Bahamas to play golf. So I missed that part, right? He didn't mention that part. So here I am thinking we're going to go play 18 around the corner from his house.
Yeah, we're going to the country club around the corner.
Yeah, we're getting on his private plane to go fly to the Bahamas to go play golf. And, I was pretty, pretty excited. Obviously in that situation, I had to contain my excitement, right? You got to kind of act like you've been there before. And
Yeah, right. Sure, sure. Let's go.
you're right.
Yeah, no problem. That's what I was thinking too.
Exactly right. So, 15 minutes later, we're driving up, to his plane. We're loading the baggage and the golf clubs, and we're taking off in 20 minutes from us having that conversation, flying to the Bahamas, playing golf at the Ocean Club right there by Paradise Island, and one of the fantastic best courses I've played in the Bahamas. But yeah, so just again, I can't stress it enough. Um, Find a mentor, right? That is going to help you along the way and open your eyes to some things.
Yeah, it keeps you honest, keeps you thinking bigger, kind of leveling up that mindset, right? And
Exactly
so,
right.
so staying on the topic of your mentor, what's one of the things that has a last, and besides the maybe this trip and open your eyes to things, anything he shared with you that maybe someone in their 20s or someone that's less than 10 years into their career could really like land, it could really hit their heart?
Yeah. So he uses a phrase that I love. It's simple in nature, but it's so meaningful. And he always says, always keep your feet moving, right? So what he means by that is there are times in your life that things may not necessarily go your way, but you can't sit still, right? Keep your feet moving, move forward, lean into stuff, find another alternative, find a solution, but keep moving forward. That's one. I would say the second thing is, in our 20s and our 30s and our 40s, we are in the business of building a career and making money, right? There are lots of things in this world that comes with that, right? You have bills, you got taxes, you got, kids that you have to feed, you got all these things, mortgage payments. He's a wise investor, right? His thing is real estate and, if you will, restaurants. So the life that you have right now, sometimes you need to pause it. You may not need to go out with your friends every weekend and get two pitchers of beers and chase a good time. Sometimes you need to kind of lay some roots down. So he's a big advocate of make your money, save a percentage of it, invest in some things that are going to make you money, right? Buy the things that are assets as opposed to liabilities. You have all your life to get, a nice car. You have all your life to buy jewelry. You have all your life to do all those things. Put it on pause for a little bit in your 20s. I know it's hard to do. And maybe even your 30s. 35, you want to buy a house, you want to buy a condo, you want to buy a townhouse, you have the money, you have the credit, but along the way, if you have the ability, even at an earlier age, to pick up some assets that are going to potentially gain in value over the years, buy that instead. So he's a big proponent of that.
Love it. Love it. And you've had a chance to move to some big names in the market, right? Salesforce and Microsoft. I know we talked briefly about people even there that kind of made an impact on you and your leadership and your style of leadership. So tell me about corporate world, corporate big companies, and why did you kind of make your way into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's there's lots of layers to that, but I'm going to try to get through it as best I can. Uh, I'll start with corporate America was amazing. So, growing up in the family in which I grew up in, we uh, we go after the best, right? To be the best, you got to beat the best, right? That's a saying in sports, and I think people are familiar with it. My first big break into big corporate America, yes, was 3Com, but really was Salesforce, right? That's the one that's kind of really still known. When I joined Salesforce, I'm dating myself, but it was probably 2006, 2007 I joined. And at the time, there was maybe 14 or 1,500 employees. Now in 2006, there weren't a lot of, I'm going to say this very gently, there weren't a lot of people that looked like me in the company, right? So um, I went through an interview process. I went to about 13 interviews, and they were, and again, I don't fault them for it. They were just vetting me out to ensure that if they were to put me in front of their most prized customers, I was going to perform at a high level. Now, at the time, they didn't know what household I grew up in, right? I was very prepared.
Right.
When we're talking about an interview, we're not just talking about, hey, somebody sitting across the table asking you questions. We're talking about a panel of 8 people watching you present on a topic that you just found out about 2 days ago, right? So they want to see you sweat. They want to see you get through. I mean, it was a rigorous interview process. Anyway, I landed at the job. I was there for about 4 or 5 years, loved it, leveraged that experience, went to a company called Yammer. I was the 66th employee there, was given an opportunity to lead. And the best phrase that comes to mind is there was no room for failure, right? That's the best way to say it. So if you address something or attack something when there is no room for failure, you'd be surprised at how alert and clear you can become as to what are the actions that need to take place to ensure that you do not fail. Now, again, I want to be clear. It wasn't a, CYA type situation. It was, how do I exceed, right? How do I meet expectations and then exceed expectations? So, early mornings, late nights, consistently, consistently, consistently. So, um, happy to report, after about 3 years, that company was acquired by Microsoft for a little over $1 billion, which is at the time was a very big deal. Um, so once I moved over to Microsoft, I was now thrust into a bigger leadership position where I was responsible for the Americas. Now, again, there's not a lot of people that look like me in this position, right? You're managing a line item of about $980 million. So when I say and you understand pressure, right? It was a very intense, pressure packed environment. Um,
Sure.
and there are lots of people that are coming your way to knock you off of your throne, right? So you have to perform at a very high level all the time. So that gives you a glimpse of corporate America, right? So once Microsoft had, I was managing that level of revenue. I was traveling quite a bit, responsible for the Americas, all throughout Canada, all throughout the US, all throughout South America on a 3 week loop, right? So every 3 weeks I was in the air. I was home for maybe 4 days, maybe, and then I was doing it again. So after about, it takes a toll on you. So I decided to leave.
Yeah.
Um, I went to a startup called Xamarin, was leading a smaller team, less travel, right? Quality of life had been improved, still a pressure packed environment, but was happy with my decision. 7 months to the day that I started, Microsoft acquired Xamarin. So now this is the second acquisition by the same company. Uh, I knew, there's a saying, it's it's better to work with the devil that you know, right, than the devil that you don't know. I knew what was in store for me. I didn't want to do it anymore. So I decided to leave corporate America, specifically not go back to Microsoft. And then I put some money away. I had some time to develop and think about what I want my next move to be. As any good entrepreneur or tech person will tell you, we're in the business of solving problems. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to solve a problem. And the problem that I had seen, being so close and having my finger on the pulse of what I was doing, was that I had hired about 500 plus people in my previous jobs. Yammer, Microsoft, Xamarin. Those individuals were very specialized individuals. I knew that there was not a recruiting practice in the world that focused specifically on that skill set. So I said, why not build it? Right. I want to build this. Let's see if I can do it. Right. It's a challenge. So I reached out to a recruiting firm. I spoke to the founders and I said, hey, here's my background. This is what I've been doing. There's not a recruiting firm in the country that has built something like this. I want to build it. And they looked at me a little surprisingly, like, why would you want to do this? Right? What's the motivation here? And I thought, and at the time, I had money in the bank, the bills were paid, I was fine. I was like, I just want to see if I can do it. And if I can do it, we both benefit. And if I can't do it,
Yeah.
well, I'll go back to figuring something else out. And so they gave me an opportunity. Uh, the first year we were really successful. The second year, we maintained a gradual climb, if you will, in revenue. Uh, but at that time, I was asking for something, right? And I think it's important, if you are successful in what you are doing, if you're meeting and or exceeding the expectations of your job, it's important for you to go to your leader and ask for more responsibility. And that's exactly what I did. I went to my leaders, the founders of the company, and I said, hey, I'm generating a significant portion of the revenue of this business. I want to be a partner. And they thought my ask was a little bit too lofty. I I leaned on the data, right? Because data tells a story.
Yeah.
Um, I leaned
I
on
hear that there's a saying, men and women lie, numbers don't.
Absolutely right, absolutely right. So I leaned on the data, and they pushed back a little bit more. And then at that point, I've asked you twice. I'm not gonna ask a third time. So I decided to step out, a leap of faith, and said, I've been running this business and this team for the last 3.5, 4 years. It's time to do it on my own. I climbed the ladder. I went to the springboard. I could not see the water below, and I jumped.
I love it. I love it. And how was it like your first? So it's interesting, right? And I explained a little bit of what I do, and obviously the space we're in and the retail space, and when clients contract us, we sell their services. But what I fell in love with 20 years ago was the idea of helping people do what you just did, is hiring them early on, teaching them the fundamentals of sales and business and leadership. And then people do get a chance over the course of a few years to be a partner and run a market. And they literally run their own company. And it's exactly what you just did.
Yeah,
Just you took all the risk. We actually helped them get set up. We helped them get going. I didn't get in all that with you before. So it's
yeah.
very interesting. I didn't realize that that was the kind of the path you went on. But how, I mean, you bet on yourself. You're on the springboard. You don't see the water.
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah.
me that first 30, 60, 90 days. How did you feel inside? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's the best way I can describe it is that it's terrifyingly exciting, right? That's the best way to describe it. I was terrified, right? You're terrified because it's hard to make a transition when you have a check coming in every 2 weeks in corporate America, right? And it's a nice check, right? You built your career, you built your titles, right? Because they tell you titles are important in corporate America, right? You keep moving up, right? The more people you manage, the more money you make, the more you're responsible, right? You're building your name for yourself. And now I was my own boss, right? So it was terrifying, uh, but it was exciting. So all the relationships that I had cultivated over the years, and that's when you know you made the right decision, is when you reach out to those individuals and you simply start communicating, hey, I'm not with this company any longer. I've started my own firm. Here's what we're working on right now. Please keep me in mind if you have any business, right? If you have any companies that you need to find leaders for, we've had a good working relationship. Reach out. So as you circulate that message and your phone starts to ring, it's pretty gratifying. So after the nerves, it's kind of like your first game, right? There's some nerves there, and it's okay. It's
Yeah,
healthy. But when you start moving, right? When you start moving, you get your first hit, you make your first shot. We can use lots of different references for sports. You settle, right? Once you settle, it's time to go to
yeah.
work. And that's essentially what it's been, right? It's every day is a challenge. Every day is something new. Every day is an opportunity to be great. And that's essentially what I've been doing the last 3.5 years now.
I love it. I love it. And to be fair, the so if you could give some context of the type of recruiting, right? So the people you're recruiting aren't, these aren't people that are making 100 grand a year. These are
Yeah,
people, from what you shared with me. I said, so tell me, what are the number like? And again, what you'd shared, close to 500,000 a year with some options, and they have really senior roles in big tech companies, and
yeah,
they're very specialized, right?
yeah. So
Do you mind sharing a little bit of that?
yeah, so my what I focus in on is it's a term, and it's a profession. It's called customer success. So, what customer success is, a lot of people confuse it with customer support. Customer support is, let's say you have a product or you have a service. Customer support is break fix, right? Something's wrong with my product. Hey, we had some technical challenges this morning. Let's call my customer support rep to help me through these challenges. That's not what customer success is. Customer success is essentially it's a role where you have customers that have already purchased the product. They are currently using the product. They're spending hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. Your job as a customer success person and or a customer success leader is to drive usage and adoption of the product and the service. So think about a strategic account manager that does not necessarily have a sales quota. That's essentially what customer success is. I'm hiring these leaders that are building out these teams. So most customer success leaders will have responsibilities of a customer success team, potentially a customer support team, an education team, and a professional services team, maybe even a renewals team. So when that contract comes up for renewal, that team is now negotiating with the powers that be in that company to renew their licenses or to renew their contract. The success leaders that I am hiring sit atop all those organizations. So you referenced salary. Sometimes these individuals make anywhere from about a 230 to a 270 base, uh, plus options, plus bonus. Most of their bonuses are anywhere from, I'd say, 20 to 35% of their base salary. So you're looking at another, 150 to, 175, 200 grand, plus options, which, put them in the total comp at around five to $600,000 a year.
That's a lot of responsibility.
It's a lot of responsibility. Yeah. It's again, terrifyingly exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I we became friends on LinkedIn, and I read some of the reviews of some people that use your company and use your service. And these are people that, before may not have had the best experience with recruiters or tech recruiters.
Yep.
And they really spoke, and one guy in particular really talked about, and on the message was about how much the relationship meant to him, and how you went out of your way, even through, like, from the interview and speaking after his interview, and then through the process and the flight out there. He called on the way to the airport, and it just sounded like you just care,
Yeah.
right? And I get that sense from our conversation. We hit it off pretty. It's funny because one of my friends was on the flight. She's like, "You guys talk the entire time." Like, I turned around a few times. You guys were just chatting away. So, but I got that sense when we were kind of chatting on the flight.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's it's recruiting. Everybody's been recruited. If you have been West Coast, anywhere in the country, at some point you have talked to a recruiter. My sense of my experience with recruiters were, I was a number, right? I was a person that checked the boxes, and they were trying to slot me in to meet with this person to move me along the process because that's how they got paid. That is all true, but essentially, the thing that has worked for me is, if I represent you and or a company that is looking for you, I want to get to know you and your story. That's it. I don't care about what you did and what you didn't do. I want to know you, because at the end of the day, um, just like you buy from people that you like, you hire people that you like. And I want to get to the crux of who you really are, what you believe in, what motivates you, what's nirvana for you. I want to know all these details so I can then go back and regurgitate that to the powers that be, regardless of what you've accomplished, because we're in this conversation for what you accomplished. I want to sell you. Here's why this person would be a good fit for this organization. And in order to get to that, you gotta care about people. You got to really dive in. You got to ask the hard questions. You got to represent them well and build that relationship. The last thing I will say about that is that as I'm hiring you, you're going to remember that experience. So when it comes time to build out your team, right, to hire somebody else, you're going to think about hopefully me and my company and what we've done.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I know we in this specialized human, right, that has all this pressure. You go out of your way. You've separated yourself as an organization by building an incredible relationship with them. I'm curious about these individuals, and some of their routines and some of
Yeah.
their habits. Because in my and I may be wrong, but in my opinion, there's probably things in these questions you're asking that you pick up on that have threads of success, of why they are even considered for these roles.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing? And I know you have your own habits and things, but do you mind sharing some of those threads of success and
Absolutely.
habits daily? And
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, the best piece of advice that I can give somebody as it relates to what I've seen is discipline is the word that comes to mind, right? Most of the people that are really successful, specifically in my business, that go on to do great things, that have a great home life, personally and professionally, great fathers, great mothers, whomever it is, they're very disciplined. And when I say discipline, I want to break that down for a second. The common threads that I see in individuals that I speak with, even my mentor, is that they are very organized in the sense of, what do I need to accomplish today, this week, this month, this year, right? And again, don't overwhelm yourself. All it has to do is be 3 to 5 things. What do I need to accomplish today? For example, we are having about 30 people over our house tomorrow for a Friendsgiving, if you will. There are 3 things that I need to do. I need to get the leaf blower out. I need to go to the grocery store and clean off the deck. Right? These are just things I have to do as it relates to the household. There's probably 3 things that I need to do for work, but I have those written down. Right? Those are the things that I need to accomplish today. Uh, they may take some time. I might be able to get them done faster than I had anticipated, but they are written down and I'm able to see them. I would suggest, well, not even suggest, the people that I come across are the same way. They know what they need to do in the day, in the week, in the month, in the year, and they have that list readily available to them. And it's near, right? It's on the refrigerator, it's on a stick it note in the bathroom mirror, it's in a notebook that they have that they open every day. They could, digitalize it and put it on their phone or their computer, but they are following that every day, and there's a routine. They're getting up at the same time. They're going to the gym at the same time. They're having their breakfast at the same time. As you create and stretch and build that muscle, it now becomes habit. And you would be surprised how you will move the needle if you implement a process like that.
I love it. I love it. It's just so interesting because I've always been curious in my life about success, right? As a young kid, and I had parents of different teammates of mine that, I told a story to our staff a week or so ago about my buddy Grant, and when same type of experience where his mom's like, "I need to pick up your dad at the airport," and we're like, "Oh, in the backseat of the car going to soccer practice," and we pull into the private airport, and he gets off a private jet. And it was like the first moment of my life that I was like, oh my gosh, not everybody lives on it, like
Right,
not everyone lives the same way. And
right,
I was just so confused, right? But also like curious.
right.
But that's awesome. So tell me, what's some of the hardest things you've had to deal with as an entrepreneur?
That's a great question. Not having a boss. Like I'm the boss, right? There's a good and bad with that, right? Nobody's going to tell you what to do, right? You got to figure it out on your. You got to be self motivated, right? It's kind of like, you know, there are times in your entrepreneurship that you will win, right? You will win. You will get the account. You will close the deal. You will the invoice will be paid, and it's easy to kind of rest, right? It's easy to kind of sit on your couch or in your bed and take some time off. You can't do that. You got to keep going, right? That's the name of the game, is to drive business, to be successful, to build revenue, whatever the goal is that you have. It's hard for people to realize. Nobody's going to tell you when to go, what to do. Um, you have to be pretty self motivated. That's one. The other thing is there's not really any days off, right? You're not going to work less than you did in corporate America. If anything, you're going to probably work 2 or 3 times as hard as you did. Um, Now, again, there's a point that you're going to get to where you're going to understand the rigor of the business, right? So you can work smarter and not harder. But the first couple of years, you're going to work. You're going to work your tail off, and it's okay, right? Because this is what you chose to do, and again, there's no room for failure. So you got to suck it up, buttercake. You got to figure it
Suck it up, Buttercup.
out, right? You got to figure it out.
I love it. I love it. I noticed also on LinkedIn that you follow people like Gary Vee and a few influencers and things.
Yeah,
Anyone in particular that you like to listen to, or YouTube, or audio,
yeah.
or books
I like
and
them
things?
all.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I like them all. I like Grant Cardone. I like Gary Vee. I think what I like most about those is I like really understanding somebody else's style, right? And again, perspective is everything. I like learning about how they did it, right? I like learning about how they were able to maneuver throughout their journey and maintain who they were. Actually, that's how they present. I'm assuming that they present like actually who they are. And what I gathered from that was you have to develop your own style, right? You can take some things from other people because those people have been successful and obviously they have made tons of money in presenting to you what they have done and how something should be done. But what I always glean from that is develop your own style, right? And be okay, right? Draw the line in the sand and say, this is who I am. This is what I believe in, and this is how I'm going to attack the business. You're either going to succeed or you're going to fail, right? And hopefully you can fail fast and you can learn from it. But those are two that come to mind. I love Gary Vee's personality. I hope one day he
Yeah,
does team. I love the guy. Grant, he's got lots of people that follow him, and I love really good motivational speakers. If there's somebody that I can watch and they can get me to move right as far as an action, I like those guys, and those guys are two of the best.
I love it. I love it. And you mentioned about people being themselves. I believe that the superpower is authenticity and having strong awareness about kind of who you are, what you stand for. And I know for me, it took me into my late 30s even to really kind of get fully comfortable with all of that, right? And it's like so many so many layers of peeling things back and mistakes and life. Um, so just to kind of wrap things up, I know it's I don't in respect of your time, any other just thoughts for someone that wants to succeed, or we it's so interesting. So when I fly, I don't sometimes I buy first class tickets, sometimes I don't. I get upgraded, and I'm sure the same way you get
Yeah,
for your miles and things, and it's so interesting how when you sit in first class, there's just successful people that are there, right? That entrepreneurs, high level executives, people that travel for work all the time. And any other thoughts just for someone who just wants to build their life and have a great family maybe someday, or have more choices and not live paycheck to paycheck, and are really motivated and they're working on their disciplines. They're probably screwing up a lot, right? But they're
yeah,
they're they're just thinking about in 5, 10, 15 years, I want to do more. I want to have more.
yeah.
Any
Yeah.
thoughts for those just to kind of wrap things up?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think you first, you can't be afraid to talk to people you don't know. Right? You can't do that. Obviously, flights are going every day, even on the weekend. Right? You may have the opportunity to sit in first class. You may have the opportunity to sit and coach. Obviously, you have to be pretty socially aware of people that potentially are open to a conversation. Right? Because if somebody
Yeah.
introducing themselves and they put their headphones on.
Yeah.
Exactly right, right. First, I would say don't be afraid to meet people, right? To network, to be curious. Continue to be curious. There's lots of different professions that are in the world. There's lots of different successful people. There's lots of lessons still to be learned in life. Even if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, like be continuously learning, number one. Number two, I would say, is be very specific about what you want to attain, right? Even if it's the biggest dream that you have, excuse me, write it down somewhere and chase it. Pursue it. Um, uh, I would also say that, again, identify a mentor, somebody that you perceive as being successful, and get in close proximity of that person. But you also, as you identify a mentor, you have to do the work to be proactively engaged with them. They're busy. They're running multi-million-dollar companies. They're not going to call you every week or every month to check in on how you're doing. You have to do that. Set up the time, put it on the calendar, be punctual. Um, and, there's a couple more things. I would also say you have one chance to make a first impression. Just remember that. You got one chance. You got one chance. The world is cruel, right? They're assessing you every step of the way, your shoes, your clothes, how you speak, what you've accomplished. Be comfortable in your own skin, present well. You never know who you're going to meet. And do not let anybody tell you there's an easy way out, right? There's no quick fix. Take this pill, do this potion. It's going to work. Like you got to work, right? You got to, as my dad would say, you got to get in the gym and shoot those shots, right? To improve anything, you got to work at it. You got to work at it so hard that it's going to become second nature to you. Um, and lastly, I will say this: you got to be a good person, right? Be a good person. Treat people kindly. Um, be as genuine as you can. Um, be kind, right? Don't be a butthole. You know what I mean? Don't do it. It does not. It's not going to work out for you. The last thing I will say, I just thought of something else. Is I think the younger generation does a really good job of collaborating, right? You think about all the social streams of information that we have available to us, from YouTube to TikTok to Instagram to Facebook. The younger generation, unlike the older generation, they are already looped into how that works, right? They will reach out to people that they don't know. They'll ask questions. They'll respond via something that they're really good about that. You just need to translate that into now doing it off of a computer or a phone, right? Be the same way, but do it in face to face person, and collaborate. One of the best stories my former CEO said was, if we have a problem as it relates to our product or our service, um, everybody in the company matters. Meaning, if you are in shipping, receiving, accounts payable, finance, accounting, if you have a good suggestion on how to improve or fix this problem, I want to hear about it. Right? It shouldn't be just the engineers or the product guys fixing the problem for our customers. If you have an idea on how we can improve this or do it better, raise your hand, right? Listen to everybody. The message in that is listen to everybody around you, because they have a different perspective than you and different perspectives. It's kind of like my mom always says, many hands make light work, right? That's essentially what you're doing.
Yep. My mom said the same thing. Same thing. Man. Oh man, that's awesome. Well, Nate, again, thank you so much for taking
You're
the
welcome.
time today. Really appreciate you. And obviously, we're gonna hang tight here. I'm gonna stop the recording and I'll get things going. But for anyone that's on live today, thanks for jumping on today. I know you got a ton of nuggets of knowledge from just an incredible guy. So thank you so much. You guys have a happy Friday, and we'll see you guys soon. Thanks for jumping on today live.